Okay. No. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Individuals wishing to address the city council are requested to complete the speaker card and deliver the card to the city clerk prior to the item being heard by the city council. Please observe a 3-minute time limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, we request that you state your name and city of residence for the record. Let's see, communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment only on items within the council's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on these items. Please observe a 3-minute time limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, we request that you state your name and city residence for the record. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards for communication from the public?
Vice Mayor, I do not have any speaker cards.
Okay, so there wasn't any requests that I'm aware of to change the order of agenda items. So first up, we have a report from Parks and Recreation regarding the master plan update with MIG. Is it MIG or is it MIG?
Either or.
What do you guys prefer?
I always say MIG, but
Me too.
I have half the firm says MIG, so.
MIG it is. So Moses Cortez, Facilities, Parks, Trails Manager, Tree Warden, all around good guy, please present the report.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this time. As you know, we're in the middle of 3 master plans. This one is an update on our Parks and Recreation master plan. We are really getting into the details of it, hitting the ground running, doing a ton of outreach, and we're really excited to share an update with you guys on where we are with it. I'm joined today by Genevieve, our consultant from MIG or MIG, whatever you want to call them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her, let her go through the presentation, and then at the end, if you have any questions for us, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Great, thanks
Thank you.
Moses, and thanks for having me here today. Happy to give you an update on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which is now well underway. So I have just 3 main items that I'd like to touch on, just give you an update on the process in general, really talk a lot about the community engagement, which we're in the thick of right now, and touch a bit on next steps as well. And I realized last time that I neglected to kind of tell you who we were before diving into the work, so I just wanted to put our faces up on the screen for you. MIG or MIG, whichever you prefer. I'm Genevieve Sherrow, I'm the project manager, and we're led by our fearless leader, Cindy Mendoza, who's our principal with our office, and our project director. And MIG has a really deep bench of technical expertise in community engagement, planning, and landscape architecture, and and digital engagement as well. And that's the foundation of the team. And we're supported by a fantastic sub-consultant, 110%. Jamie Savak is the leader of the firm, and our technical lead on financial sustainability is Farrell Bueller. And 110%, it was brought on to be kind of the experts on financial sustainability. So they help ask those really hard financial questions, but also come up with some good answers to those to make sure that we have the longevity of the park system in mind. So this team, the consultant team, is partnering with your community, with your fantastic staff and your Parks and Recreation Commission to develop this master plan with the goal of creating a unified vision and planning framework for the enhancement and long-term maintenance of the park system here in Corona. We have 5 kind of key ingredients that we're keeping in mind as we develop the plan. We kind of think these are good to keep top of mind as we move forward. The first is to be inclusive. We really want to include a diverse demographic throughout, across, and among all of the constituents throughout the community to really understand what are the needs and priorities of the people who live here. We want to be equitable. So we want to establish some standards that result in a system that is balanced, that all neighborhoods have access to parks that meet an identified standard for the city of Corona. We want to be strategic. We want to really just be smart about how we're thinking about the plan. We want to develop a strategy that we can fund long-term, operations and maintenance-wise, as well as have an innovative plan with new capital improvements that we support. We want to be visionary along with that innovation. We want to recognize that, you know, the future is always changing. So this is not a static plan. It has to have an adaptation component to it as well. And finally, we really want to be actionable. We don't want this to be a plan that just sits on the shelf. We really want it to be a tool for council moving forward, Parks and Rec Commission and staff to have kind of clear path forward implementation and help in decision making. So there's quite a few steps that we need to get through before we get to that ultimate master plan. But at the foundation and really at its core is community engagement. So we're in the thick of that right now. So at the beginning, we're starting with an identification of community priorities and preferences. This is kind of the core at why we're doing so much outreach at the beginning, is to really get that understanding solid and build that foundation for the plan. The next step is to identify where there are gaps in the community and some of those needs. So this goes along with that community outreach. We're talking about what the community needs, what they desire, and where are some opportunities that are already identified by your community members. We use that as a foundation to create what we call our vision framework. That will also go into what we use to define that Corona standard for what we expect in our parks, and recommendations for all of the individual parks as well as the park system as a whole. This will all dovetail with a financial sustainability strategy, again, being really thoughtful about how this works in the long term, and with a final implementation plan that gives you, the decision makers, really a clear path forward based on this information. So currently we're in the first two phases of the program, really focused on that public engagement and outreach. And we will use this information that we're receiving from the community again later to cross-check, involve key stakeholders and residents to really create that community-driven, action-oriented plan. So we started our outreach process back in the summer by speaking with you and with our Parks and Recreation Commissioner and the city manager. And this was really helpful for us to understand, you know, the priorities that you have to weigh as a city council against all the other priorities in the city, as well as really kind of key park initiatives and priorities that we should keep in mind. And this can help us to guide the plan and the process in general. So one of the key themes that came out of that conversation was that decision makers really want to ensure that all park and recreation facilities do meet that basic standard, the Corona standard. That was identified as kind of a common key theme amongst all the folks we talked to. In addition, we noted park quality and amenities should be kind of evenly distributed throughout the community and not just concentrated in one central area or non-central area. We heard things that we knew about needs for improvements at certain parks and to address some outdated infrastructure and really to think about what the community's recreation needs and interests really were and to make sure that we're updating associated with that. We also heard that decision makers really understand all the benefits that come out of a fantastic park system, from the health and wellness of your community members, kind of how you look to the outside world, as well as economic development mechanisms as well. We also heard, oops, I'm gonna go back. Apologies. We also were kind of cautioned, again, to be smart about the recommendations that we put in place, that they are actually actionable recommendations. And furthermore, that the master plan should really provide that clear direction with a prioritization of needs and really have a path forward, even if there's competing interests in decision making. So we're keeping all of that in mind as we move forward. In the summer, we also launched a website for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which is really intended to be kind of a one-stop shop for folks to go to the site, find information about the park system as a whole, what's going on. Folks can find the links to our current surveys, updates about meetings, and also leave questions or comments to staff through this website. This summer, we also launched, kind of soft launched an outreach campaign to really get the word out about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and to hear from community members what their wish for Parks in Corona was. We asked folks to either draw a picture or tell us or to write it down what they wished to see in Parks in Corona. And a total of 134 folks participated in this process. It was available both online and through paper copies, and advertised through the city's digital media. Some of the city-held summer events, like the summer concert series, we got some great feedback from kids and adults, and Caroline was out there talking to folks about their favorite parks, really getting people excited about the process. And we got great input from kids about what they envisioned as their perfect playground, the themes that they wanted to see, some new amenities and equipment that they wanted to see in their parks. From some of the online respondents, we got a variety of feedback. We heard some of the things we've heard in the past about desire for skate parks and pump tracks, which of course will be evaluated against all of the needs and all of the concerns and all of the ideas that are brought up throughout this process. We also heard, again, a recognition of the benefit to the community as a whole of a high quality system, leading towards higher levels of wellness. We also heard some specific desires about amenities for shade and other eco-friendly park system type things. Participants were also able to upload photos, which is always a nice tool, I think, to give us some ideas about parks that they've seen that they like, and just kind of giving a visual can be the easiest way to get someone's ideas across. So building on the success of that WISH campaign, we launched the Parks and Recreation Needs Survey, which is open now through November 20th, and we're really excited about it. If you haven't taken it yet, please do. If you haven't told 10 of your nearest and dearest to also take it, please do. We are asking folks in this survey questions about the park that they go to most often, and then branching out to ask questions about the park system as a whole. And here we're asking for kind of levels of satisfaction with certain components of the system, and really asking too about what people would like to see more of in Corona. We're trying to keep the survey brief enough that makes it accessible to folks. We want to make sure that people aren't turned off by too many questions, but we really need to ask enough questions that we get enough feedback to understand what really are the community preferences in the community. It's also available, it's available in English and Spanish, both online and paper copies. It's been distributed really widely through digital media and in local parks. The city has a raffle going on right now for a gift card to a local business to really encourage participation, and these the social media posts are encouraging a lot of participation. And the city did this really cool thing with these leaves. Such a fantastic idea, your staff's idea, to put these up in the park. So these are leaves with a QR code to this survey. And this is fantastic because it goes to a question about that park that they're in right now, and then it feeds in, branches out to the rest of the park system. Another really cool thing about these leaves is that they're there for the long term. They can be used to, let residents provide feedback about the park even after this survey closes. So this is just a fantastic tool, and we're seeing a lot of responses through this mechanism as well. The city's also getting the word out through postcards that'll be going out to the community about outreach and engagement in the process moving forward. At local events like HalloWeekend, thank you all for your participation at HalloWeekend. It was great to have so many people encouraging residents to participate in the process. And the QR codes are on park ranger trucks as well. We're also having like our local assemblyman woman post through her social media, so really increasing the reach through that. And with that, we've gotten 1,500, we've gotten more than that now, total submissions, which is really a fantastic response. We're really excited about that. The survey's not closed yet, so we're excited to see that grow even further moving forward. So this engagement process is really a crucial part of this phase 1 and phase 2. I mean, it's a crucial part of the entire project, really. It is the foundation. But we're doing a lot of that push right now. Through this fall and into the winter, we'll be taking the feedback that we're receiving through this engagement and through our technical analysis to develop that needs assessment. Throughout each of these phases, we're really grateful to the Parks and Recreation Commission for their guidance and to be able to meet with you for updates quarterly. And with that, I am here with Moses for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Great presentation. Before I go to my colleagues, I'll start with Ms. Edwards. Are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, I do not have any speaker.
Okay. Then I would think that we'll all probably want to listen to what our Parks and Recs commissioners would like to say first. So Ms. Wentworth, would you like to, any questions?
Well, we covered this last night in our meeting, and because we've been updated all along, I don't think that we had questions as much as I just wanted to share with you kind of the unanimous opinion that the way that they're conducting their survey and the manner in which they're going about getting this information, prioritizing it, is phenomenal. So it's exactly what we want it to be. And the survey that they're doing and the survey that's also gone out for City Park, I think is great. It's not too long, it's not too short, and it's just hitting the right amount of information. So we're very pleased, and I don't think you could find a better way to organize it and move through this amount of information, plus with all the backlog infrastructure issues we have and all the requests for new things and how do we manage all that, to be able to put that in a package that makes sense and looks equitable to people, to me is really important. So I think they're doing a great job, and I think just moving along this path, I think we're going to get a good product and a good plan out of it.
Excellent. Is the mayor on Zoom? Just wanted to see if you wanted to, if you had any questions or comments. I can't imagine.
I had no questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Councilmember Steiner.
No, I'm good too. Good job.
Councilmember Richens.
Are we doing questions and comments or
Yes,
just
sir.
questions? Yeah. I put a lot of faith in that one over there, and she gave you the thumbs up.
Believe me, if there was a problem, I would have said it.
Nobody doubts that for a second.
I guess my only ask would be, and it's just out of curiosity, is when you guys get finished with this phase, if we could just see a list of all the citizen recommendations, good and bad, just see what they came up with.
Yeah, we'll have a summary of this, kind of a summary of the survey. It's going to be thick. If you want the thick data detail, there'll be that too, but we'll be able to summarize it for you as
Just what
well.
the citizens recommend.
Yeah.
So it probably get it in 2 pages, right?
Yeah, we'll summarize it down.
I'll take the 100 things.
Yes.
Yeah,
Every word.
so that would be it.
I just wanted to ask, on page 14, the slide that talks about what some of the requests are we getting a lot of specifics as far as jungle gyms and, skate, are you able to kind of, are you gonna be able to compile that saying, of the 1,500 responses, 1,300 people want a pump track and, 1,200 people want play equipment and so on and so forth? One of the things that I noticed that the last Parks Master Plan was done 33 years ago, I think is what it says. And the needs and wants and desires of parks are probably different than what they are 33 years ago. That's how you have dated equipment that really kind of cater to maybe a certain age demographic or whatnot. And I think that there's a lot of unused space in our parks where amenities that are probably more current, that kids, maybe offer experiences to a wider age group of kids. So are we getting a lot of specifics requests on what they want to actually see? Not just like things like shade and maybe barbecues and keep it clean. That all that stuff is very important, but specifics as far as what they want to see in the park.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if we have been getting like very specific requests, even down to what park they'd like to see it in.
Oh, good.
So we're trying to be equitable again, so we're
Yeah.
trying to make sure that each quadrant of the city. I mean, if you go back 33 years ago, the size of the park city compared to it now, I mean, it's expanded so much. So park system has grown with that, and we just want to make sure that we're providing, a similar experience in each section of the park.
Yeah. Well, I think that even if maybe somebody in, you're getting a lot of requests for South Corona, I mean, those amenities would be applicable elsewhere, I'm assuming. So I understand that. And then the last question that I have is, I also thought that the leaf was a great idea. And I love the fact that it's a sticker on the Rangers trucks. I think that's also a brilliant idea. I'm gonna give the credit to Dr. Turner. I'm sure that was coming out of her office. But of the 1,500 total submissions that we have, do we have a goal?
I mean, I think we've surpassed the goal. I think that is a great amount. It's representative. You know, we're usually happy if we get over 500. I think, so I'm really happy with it. I think we're gonna keep pushing because we really wanna make that push and we wanna reach out to as many people as possible. But we're really happy with it so far.
Excellent. Well, I think that we're well on the way, and this was just a receive an update, so I appreciate you guys coming out. Your turn now, bud.
Thank you. Thanks for filling in for me. I stuck in a meeting and couldn't get out of it, so. Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards for this item?
Yeah, no, we do not.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go on to item number 3. This is a little bit out of order. So we're gonna start with Jason last, even though I heard you say there wasn't gonna be anything out of order.
That's because I didn't read the
It was
second
already in
paragraph. I didn't read the second
That's okay.
paragraph.
Recreation Manager will present us a report. Looks like
So which one are we doing?
number 3.
Summer concerts.
Summer concerts.
Past, and we're gonna take you into the future.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Attaboy.
All right. We'll let that presentation just queue up here in a second.
Can't beat a Jason Last report.
It's true.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, members of the Committee of the Whole. It is my pleasure to be here. Jason Lassen, the Recreation Services Manager, and I'm joined by Jose Coria, our Special Events Coordinator. And we are doing 2 presentations this afternoon, but our first will be just kind of an update and recap on this year's concert series, which took place July 14th through August 4th. Today's presentation is a simple overview, but we will want your feedback on several elements pertaining to this experience as we prepare for the upcoming fiscal year 24 budget cycle. So a little background and history. Concerts are a longstanding tradition for many municipalities as they developed their park systems long ago. Historically, public concerts programs grew in popularity during the 1930s. This is amidst the Great Depression. And this was as a means of sharing community, culture, and art during harder times. Today, we really relish in this experience as this is a popular summer pastime. Here in Corona, our concerts are held on Thursday evenings starting at 7 p.m. This is a great date as it doesn't compete with many city happenings or private sector events, which are often during the weekend. This series also falls perfectly in line right after our Independence Day, 4th of July celebration, and is in complement to the Corona Norco Unified School District's summer vacation. It's just a great opportunity for free family fun and falls right in line there with that goal for a sense of place. So to recap and kind of look at where we're going, I'm going to turn over to Jose.
So this year we had a beautiful program, mixing it up with some new performers as well as some tried and true ones. Pre-pandemic, we saw participation anywhere between 500 to 1,000 per night. And this year we're still bouncing back as people get back into the habit of coming out for events.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So as you see up there, we kind of broke it down week by week with the bands that were out there and what the participation looked like. So like I said a little bit earlier, we're still bouncing back as we're still coming out of the pandemic and participation is kind of still on the fritz. But this year we kicked off with Fat Cat Swinger, an amazing combination swing band, and ended off on a high note with Yachty by Nature, who closed out the season with the biggest crowd this year. And it's not uncommon for the first night to be the least attended as we're still trying to get the word out and we're still ramping up our summer event series. And of course, we must acknowledge all the amazing partners who helped us round out this experience. So first and foremost, the Corona Parks Foundation hosted the Beer and Wine Garden with support from some amazing local breweries. So we really thank you guys for that. It was beautiful and we had nothing but good things to say about that. And OBC Theater, who were our master of ceremonies, they helped us MC, run games, engage the crowd throughout the show, and just give general announcements and feedback throughout. We also host many community groups and outreach services at our event. So we love surveying, promoting what we do, and inviting community partners out to join us. And so Caroline was out there doing some stuff for the Parks and Rec Master Plan. So as you heard in the last presentation, it was very well received. We also have some amazing food trucks and local food vendors that provided more options than ever this year. And we also have some sponsorship opportunities and donations available if the community would like to partner with us and get more involved. And of course, any funds that are received only go to further enhance the experience with giveaways, bigger bands at these events, and with enough notice, obviously, for the bands. However, post-pandemic, in-kind support such as advertising or product donation is much more common. So how do we get the word out for our summer concerts? So we use our traditional print media as well as our social media channels. But one of the biggest challenges that we do see with this event is that it is tucked away from the street view, so it's not easily, you can't see what's happening if you're just driving down 6th Street. You kind of have to turn down Vicentia or Buena Vista to see what's happening. But to get the word out, we utilize physical advertising, such as summer concert posters that you all received, digital communications, especially our social media channels, and of course, word of mouth as the series is underway. So the big question we get asked year after year is, how do we choose the bands? So within our budget, it's imperative that we actively seek out and pursue the best options for those in our community. With just about every city in Southern California hosting their own summer concerts, we need to be very competitive to attract the best talent. To do this, we maintain a database of all known local performers who work within our specific region, and we put an all call out to all potential performers to provide us with an estimate of their performance, as well as any media kits for us to review and make sure that it will be a good fit for for our residents here in Corona. And we also take resident feedback by way of survey, and in fact, our data collector for next year is currently out. So the public can go on and submit the genres that they want to see, recommend bands, things of that nature. And in 2021, we had over 325 participants rank their genres, such as 80s, rock, cover bands, and country. We also do take write-in suggestions, as I mentioned, and in fact, that's how we found the local band Black Rock Candy, who were the opening performer for our 4th of July concert at Santana Park. Staff, we also participate in a local concert exchange throughout the California Parks and Recreation Society, or CPRS, where we can meet local bands and kind of shop around and see what the best fit would be for our residents here. And many of us also cruise around to different cities, going to their summer concerts, seeing what's out there and what could potentially work here within the city of Corona. And of course, the last piece is availability and affordability. So we often negotiate prices and have to move some dates around to make certain bands fit within our summer concert series. So as we can see, there's a lot of factors at play here, and we do the best that we can to get an optimal lineup for our community and put on the best summer concerts series for our community members. So as mentioned before, this is the data collector that's currently out. We posted it to our social media. We have it at our facilities. And we would love if you guys would help us get the word out, just so that we can get more submissions and more local bands that we could potentially have for our summer concerts. So another question along with that is, how much do our bands cost? So for competitive reasons, we often keep those figures close, but many of our bands are often amazing partners who are willing to work within our budget. But just for a general idea, we kind of broke it down into 4 different categories. So for $1,000 or less, we can get, we're looking more at upstart bands or just really good DJs to come out within our current budget, which is the Park Circuit Band of $1,000 to $2,500. We're often looking at bands that are touring the Summer Parks concert series, and that extends throughout the Southern California region. If you move into the next bracket, which is the local premium bands at $2,500 to $10,000, we're looking at more of those premium bands, such as Yachty by Nature, which was one of the ones that we had this year. And it was our splurge, and for those that were able to be there, it was just a very different experience that it gave off. The last category that we have is the name recognition bands. So once we cross that $10,000 mark, we're looking at different name bands, and for example, we were asked to look at the Grammy-winning Mariachi Divas, and their talent comes at a cost reflective of their talent and their following. There it is. Okay. So just to give you an overview of what this year looked like, we hosted 4 concerts at just under $20,000, an average about $5,000 per night which is fairly modest considering the experience that we provided. This season's bands average at about $2,500 per night. However, I can tell you that we did need to splurge for Fat Cat Swinger and Yachty by Nature on the higher end of our budget to make it work. Our stage and sound is roughly about $1,500 a night as a package deal, and likely most contract services it's expected to raise within the next year, so we're looking at a little bit more for that. And of course, we have several part-time friendly staff who you will see roaming around the event, assisting with the setup, with parking, with the general event overview, with trash, and then cleanup for post-event as well.
All right, so the next part is we have a kind of a big concept or idea we kind of want to float by the team here and get some feedback on. And simply, we just want to look at maybe combining our night market experience. We feel like that's kind of maybe ran its course. It was hot and trendy, you know, right there at the tail end of the pandemic. It was something we could do at that time. It felt fairly stable during this last summer, and of course, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and we certainly see a number of cities picked up these types of experience. So, what if we took that, combined it with our summer concert series, and took things to the next level? A downtown street scene event is really kind of like that next evolution. These types of events are very popular in the summer. We often see them in bigger cities, and they would allow us to expand our reach farther than ever before. Utilizing the 6th Street corridor and the HCC lawn, this would be highly visible, and it'd be a walkable expanse that we could fill and make it rich with vendors, artists, roving entertainment, food, amazing entertainers on our center stage. With the time change too, we might be able to accommodate a greater diversity of music by having some opening acts or local community performance. I mean, it's a pretty good size area that we could do a lot with, especially with the partnership that we've developed within this community. And then combining these two events saves us not only time and money, but with a little nudge could be the next big thing here in Corona. This also falls right in line with our downtown revitalization plan, calling for a colorful and walkable experience here in our downtown. Logistically, we could use the same footprint that we use for our holiday lighting celebration. We know this works. We just closed 6th Street from Vicentia to Buena Vista. This is less than a quarter mile. Set the HCC as the backdrop for our stage. Open up 6th Street to the vendors. And you can actually come and take a look at what this might look like when we do our holiday lighting celebration this Sunday, December 4th. So it's a great opportunity to create a new stage for a larger scale event. So overall, we are very pleased with this year's series. And you can't deny the sense of community you get when you come out to these events. You know, you're seeing friends, you're having, you know, food, culture, you know, it's about what living here in Corona is all about. And it's just so great. And now we just want some input from you. We're not voting today, but we're just trying to get a general idea. We're trying to get a pulse, a feeling. You know, where do we want to go with the budget as we start beginning to work with finance on our recommendations and our asks? So, you know, what do you think of the overall current event and experience? Are there different types of talent, musical genres, or event elements you would like to see? Our animation's out of sync here. Could a street scene event be the next big thing for Corona? Do we want to increase the proposed budget for this program in fiscal year 24? And would you like to move into a premium band category? So Jose kind of broke that down. You know, do we want to continue at the circuit level, or do we want to continue to push and go bigger? And if we do something like a downtown street scene, you know, do we want a bigger name draw? So that is my question to you. We'll pause for a little discussion here.
Okay, great. That's yeah, I love it. That's great. I'll go to our commissioner first here, our chair.
Hot seat
Parks
first,
Commission
huh?
first. And there, let's see, Parks Commission, and then also on the
So-
Parks Foundation and.
Right. So being on the Parks Foundation, just so you all know, I'm there for every concert and the entire time. So I get a good idea of what the vendors look like, the kind of activity they're getting, and then we're selling the beer and wine and the kind of sales that we had. So I think that this event suffers and is, you know, the biggest drawback is that it's hidden between two tall buildings. It doesn't create a sense of place for the community when we're doing that. It seems that getting the word out the way we're doing it isn't enough. And we're not using the full potential of our downtown corridor. It makes a lot of sense to invest in marketing, to have banners that go across 6th Street, to have things in place that drivers and community members just see as they're going around town. It's like having Christmas without wrapping your presents, basically, is what we're doing. So we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, and that's just my opinion, to go through all this effort and then to not be able to get it out of the community and to see people every concert say, I didn't even know this was a thing. I think that's a shame, because you guys do a great job, and it's a great event, and the people that are there really, have a good time. We just aren't letting the community know what we're doing. And putting it in the little magazine that goes out every quarter that's just not enough. And so when you go into towns like Palm Springs, like Carlsbad, these places that have a main drag that they will shut down for big street scene events, they're running banners across the thing. I don't live in this place, but I know I can come back next weekend for a concert. Well, we don't do that. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity. So, if you're really looking to, start small steps towards your strategic plan, I think this concert series is the way to go. I don't necessarily think you need to go huge premium band category right off the bat, but I think you need to look at how can we market this and then work your way up into that. I think also what I see with the vendors for the food, they're kind of tucked away. They're not getting the business that they need. They're not getting the foot traffic. They're not making the sales. And I don't think they're offering enough, so people are already coming kind of expecting not to eat. They're willing to drink. We do okay with selling drinks as long as the band is good. When the band is not good, people leave and they don't drink. So the first band that we had was the swing music, which was great for about 20 minutes. And I was over it. I was like, this is not the genre for this. So not that they were actually excellent musicians,
Right.
but it just, for the format, it didn't really work. And we saw it in our sales because people wouldn't drink. They just left and they packed up and left early. So I think you kind of get what works and what doesn't work with this. So I think if you expand it, put it onto the 6th Street, like we did the holiday, and then you can really invest in bringing in the food vendors so that you do what McDonald's does. When you go there, you know what you're going to get. The hamburger doesn't change. It's still the same little yucky patty with the onions and the,
Look,
But-
onions are awesome.
right, but you know what you're going to get. The consistency is there. So if you guys are interested in making a trademark event as a council for your downtown, you've got to focus on the marketing and the consistency. So if people know consistently year over year, I can show up here with no food and drink, and I'm going to have a great time. All I need is a chair and a towel and a hat, and I'm good. Then, you've got a product, and you know that people know about it. And I think having done this for a number of years with the staff and gone through this, I think all we've done is put on great concerts but hamstrung ourselves because we haven't been willing to invest in that larger picture look. Now you guys are ready to invest in the larger picture, so why not go there? Why not take this up to the next level? That would be where I would go with that.
Great. No, great. Those comments are stuff that we've talked about for the last few years, and I would say overall the current experience, I think Michelle hit it out of the park. It's really about that we need to move it up, but people don't know what to expect every time. I know I've done that where I went, okay, well, who's going to be serving food? Do I need to eat beforehand? Or, I do like the popcorn, but do I want to have popcorn for dinner with my beer?
One of the things I forgot to say too was on that, like you just reminded me. Remember when we did like the bounce house and we had face painting and we did all these little like carnival things? And I said I would rather write a check for $1,000 than again.
Yes, that was painful.
Because it was painful. But the idea that you guys are talking about putting the street market scene where you can have those family activities, that was a huge hit. And the reason I was willing to write a check to not do it is because it was such a huge hit. It was exhausting with just 4 people trying to do this. It was crazy. But, we know that we already know that works. The only reason the Parks Foundation didn't keep it up is because we don't have the manpower and
That was tough.
to do it. Yeah. So I forgot. Thanks.
No,
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, but that's where I was going with it. So I think that that people got to experience that they knew what they were going to what they were going to see, and the consistency was going to be there. I 100% agree with Michelle. I don't think we need to do the premium band thing. I think it's the experience part, as long as they're good. I think the one thing we were missing this year was a Spanish band, something that brought that flavor to it that we had in past years, and that was always the biggest night. I mean, I think 2 years ago, the one that didn't get smoked out, because I think we
Fires.
booked that band on, like, every time we booked that band, there was a fire, so it's like we didn't get to come.
It was
But
like the third time was finally the charm.
yeah, but it was consistently the biggest selling night and the most people, and it was really great, and it was great to
I would
see.
even argue, since half the city is Latino, half your concerts should be aimed at that demographic.
Yeah.
And that would be my placemaker.
I love the idea of it being on the South Lawn. I mean, on the HCC lawn. I think it's great. Closing down the street, great. As a standby until we can get downtown kind of squared away, and then I could see it moving there. Because when, growing up here, they used to do downtown Thursday nights, and they would close down 6th Street between, basically at the mall all the way the 6th. You go out there, and I remember having churros and hearing some high school bands play and different things, and it was a really awesome time. I think it stopped because a lot of the merchants were struggling, and the chamber had to change, and they were the ones that were driving it, and it was kind of more of a downtown merchant deal. And but I loved it as a kid. It was one of the greatest things in the summertime to look forward to, was just to go down there and get your churro and see your buddies and have a good time. So I could see the same thing happening here. I love the idea of putting a banner across. I love the idea of that promotional part, and getting it out on the street makes it special. I love that. Let's see, street scene. Yeah, budget wise, I'll leave it up to you guys. You guys are the, there's a budget right now for this, and I think it sounds like that there's a way to get there. So I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know. I got excited. I've been in the car. I couldn't talk to anybody.
Well, I think this conversation definitely carries on into the next presentation.
Absolutely.
And I love the summer concerts. I really do, and because the beer's really good too. But no, I think it's fun. But everything Michelle said, we were totally selling ourselves short. And I love the idea of moving it out on 6th Street, and shutting down 6th Street completely, and doing all the banners, and I'm guessing that stage would be basically behind where the fountain was, right?
So like what we did
Area?
for the holiday lighting celebration, we actually put it in front of the
it on the
HCC
street.
facade. And then the grass lawn could be where the audience can
Okay.
stage and picnic.
Yeah, and it doesn't just whatever. You got this cool concert going on over here. You got people eating over here. You got people drinking over here. You got vendor booths here, and the music's going on in the background. You don't necessarily have to be sitting there just watching the concert.
Yeah.
Maybe you do have your jumpers and stuff. Who knows? But
Getting your tires.
But I love it. I love this idea, and I do think that can kind of help take us to the next level, and it'll carry us into the next conversation. But we got to have some sort of Latin and Spanish music, absolutely.
Yep.
And maybe we can even supplement it with intermissions or opening act or something with groups like the Herencia Mariachi Academy. That's our local group, and it might tie in perfectly. Or maybe you do a 5th concert's mariachi night. Period. We know we could get that, or a 3rd and a 4th. However it's done, we got to do that for sure. Overall, current event, it's great. It could be way better. Music genres, Latin for sure. Would you like to move into premium band category? I think we need to get there at some point, but we can grow organically and make sure that our street scene is working how we want, and maybe we have a finale at the end of the season with the big one. I think that might be something that's really cool. And as far as increasing the budget, I'm very open to that, and I think that carries into the next conversation.
All right.
Thank you, Wes. I took a lot of notes. I'm with everybody on the 6th Street, and it's just a logical step. And I would even dare say have potential to think even bigger than 6th Street. Like right now, you just want to shut down Buena Vista and the other one. But if this really takes off, I think bigger, right? Jose, the idea of seeing what other cities do, I never thought of that, but when I heard you say it, that's a really cool idea. And then I think with a couple years ago, the citizens were asked to pass Measure X. And Measure X was to make life better for the citizens in Corona, right? And financially, Measure X has been very lucrative. So I would say you reward your citizens. I would take this to whole different levels. I wouldn't get just one big band, I would go get 4 big bands. And because I looked at the dollar amounts that you guys put up there, and they were actually pretty small, to be honest with you. You could triple this budget and still be well within Measure X reward category. I think Jim, I think everybody's right that there needs to be a Spanish element. And how many times, I don't know, but it needs to be there. The 2 years that I've been here now, I go to all these events, and I feel like you guys kill yourselves doing this, right? Like you put your hearts into it, your attitudes are great, and not just you two, and not those people back there, but everybody, right? And I think if I had to do that, I would fail because it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of unseen work. And so my family loves going to the bands, and my daughter is nonstop dancing the whole time. And I go home and I put it on Facebook, and I get messages like, why didn't I know about this, and why didn't anybody tell me? And because it's just fun, and if you were there, you had fun. And I just don't think you guys have the time to do promotional work. I just don't think that you have the physical time to do it. So I would look into outsourcing promotions. And that way it takes it off of your plate. And it probably could put it onto a plate with a firm or consultant or whoever you guys use that's more experienced. And if you're gonna get these big name bands and you're gonna shut down 6th Street, you probably want a more professional promotional, I don't even know how to say those people, but I'm sure they exist. And I can't read my writing. I think between all that you do, if you triple, quadruple the budget, whatever it is, and you get the proper promotion in place, I think you could have a lot. I think this is a powder keg to success. I really do. And I think the citizens, all of us, will be appreciative when they see that. So that's where I'm at.
I think I saw out of the corner of my eye Dr. Turner's heart flutter when council members
Talk about
Richard said triple and quadruple the budget.
Well, first it went to double, then it went to triple,
Yeah.
quadruple.
I
By the
think
time
I
it gets back around again, it'll be 10
literally saw it
times.
flutter over there. So
Hey, you can raise it.
yeah, no, I actually
Us festivals are you talking about?
oddly enough, I agree with Councilmember Richards about increasing the budget because I think that this is such a great event. Wrote a couple of questions and notes. My notes for the Corona Parks Foundation, their beer and wine garden, I wrote make it bigger. I think that's one of the challenges is that I see it's packed and it's kind of difficult. You know, you have the cashier underneath a tree in the back, and when Michelle Wentworth commandeers your credit card, who knows exactly what happens. So
It's all tips.
yeah,
It's all tips.
and the food truck and local vendors. I'd love to make. I also wrote down make that bigger. I mean, I think that that's a great opportunity to showcase, local food trucks, which is a huge scene, as everybody knows. They bring their own following if they're good. You made a comment about imitation is the highest form of flattery. I have driven in other local cities and seen, and I had to look because I'm like, is that our flyer?
Yes.
And then I had to scream
Totally.
at the car because they plagiarized our
R&D.
our flyers and our posters, and I'm like, what the heck?
What city is this?
It's very close to us. It's just north of us, if you will.
A little bit of robbing and duplicating.
Yeah,
So not South Corona.
no. One of the things that I have asked before, and I'm gonna ask again in the form of a challenge, I want to see Corona merch.
We have some. We have shirts.
Do we?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen them at any of these?
Yeah, Jim wears one every time.
Yeah, exactly.
I got some pencils.
Jackie wears one.
I think what he's saying is referring to, or to sell them, right?
Yes,
Sell the merch.
I don't know how that works because I'm not in operations, but I'm the idea, we're one of the idea guys, and Corona merch, I think there's so much, love for our own community that if we had it, I think people would buy it. I think that'd be a great thing to do.
Especially if we had like a really awesome new brand for the city that we could
Well,
start to really.
No soft
well,
sell.
I can tell you, there are, you know, the skate park, sticker is awesome. And if you go around this city enough, you start to see little things of stickers that are older, that, you know, the two history nerds here probably know all about, but that would be, you know, it would be the retro line of the Corona merch.
No,
Um,
I don't know.
yeah, so I also really like the street scene. When you were talking about the banners, if you've lived or you've ever been to the street fair in Orange, they put those banners up like a month ahead of time. So you know where, you know, Ireland Street is and where you're gonna get your able skeevers and all the other stuff. So I think that those are very valuable. Plus, that's a very hometown feel type of thing when you drive under the banners, which is, you know, kind of what we're doing here. So I think that there could be something there. I like the street scene idea. I think it's gonna be huge. I'm very excited for that. And I'm also very excited about increasing the budget. As long as I get Corona merch.
Tony, you bring up a good idea regarding the street scene versus the street fair. Maybe the street fair is the better way to call it, because more people are familiar with some of those old town street fairs.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Can put a title. I like
Like
it.
a long sleeve Corona shirt, t-shirt, merch.
City of Trails, not the virus.
Yeah. I think that there's all kinds of things. And I'll send
I'll
you a
stay
bunch
away
of
from
those
that one.
pictures that I have of old labels that I've seen that
I
are,
saw the airport one, that was cool.
that one's very cool. I'm having hats
Yeah.
made.
Uh-huh.
So maybe that'll be my own little side hustle. Will be that.
We're accepting interest for night market vendors.
I just promoted it at a public meeting
Yeah.
and my new company starting tomorrow.
Eric, can I just jump in and say,
Yeah.
this is really good feedback we've gotten from you all, so thank you. This is exactly what staff are looking for to make sure that we're hitting the mark for next year, so thank you for all of the ideas. Seriously, all good ideas in there, and we really appreciate all of that.
Great. Let's see.
Can I just add one?
Clerk, go ahead.
I think with the Parks Commission, part of what we struggle with when we're talking about the events, and, you know, you're all hitting on this, and I brought this back to marketing. I'd like to see the staff come forward with a more comprehensive marketing look at this. What, you know, placement of banners, how many, how much, you know. In the past, we've not, as a city, invested in this. We've always just said, well, put it on the the DWP sign on the corner. That doesn't do it, right? And so I would like to see, you know, what does that look like? And you guys are talking about increasing the budget for bands, but again, I implore you, it doesn't make any sense to spend money on music if nobody knows what you're doing.
Right.
I think it's more increasing the budget on the event.
Well,
I think
yeah.
that could possibly,
A couple of you were like better bands, and I was like, well, let's work on
Work on
a
a good
decent
party.
marketing strategy. Like, put it like, you know, if they came forward and said, you know, this is going to cost more than we thought, or
Right.
this is, if we were going to get a banner in every sports park or most used park, you know, it would be X amount of banners here and there, and then you might be surprised what that looks like and what the numbers look like.
Okay.
But I think you're right, that hometown feel and how it looks, just being able to be somewhere, see it, you feel like you're a part of it. And so that would be my ask of the staff, is some kind of, you know, marketing, you know, report for us to review for events. And it could set the path for upcoming things.
Okay. Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards for this item?
Yes, we do. We have one speaker card.
Listen for the merch.
of course, let the neighbors know what we're doing.
And if you
Who doesn't want it?
hamburgers?
Living colored shirts.
No comment.
Okay. All right, great. So we're gonna go on to our second/third item, which is the enhanced community events calendar. And so it's going to be a repeat of the Jason last show.
Yeah.
Our favorite show.
We always bring the fun stuff, and I love it. So this is really a continuation. So we kind of talked about, you know, what we did and what we want to do with the concerts, but this is kind of next level where we're going with our special events series. And we just want to provide you with an update on an enhanced community events calendar, a new perspective on what activities are taking place here in Corona, and maybe what could be. So the ask for you today is pretty simple. Again, we just wanted some input on the city's special events calendar, what you'd like to see as we prepare going into that department budget recommendation for fiscal year '24, which of course will come at a later date through the budget process. And so a little background in history. Our special events division was established in fiscal year '22, so still fairly recent, as part of the newly established Community Services Department. And currently, this division is comprised of one full-time staff person with some part-time support. The responsibilities of this division now include our 6 signature community events, oversight of the city's co-sponsorship program, working with residents seeking to hold events on city property, as well as support amongst our departments here in the city of Corona. And by the way of our work, we also find ourselves kind of keeping track of what events, attractions, and happenings are taking place here in town. So, quick little update, a year and a glance of what we've been up to. We've supported all 6 of the city's signature events, supported 25 city co-sponsored events, are currently supporting over 30 community organized events, activities, and happenings through our reservation program. And this is an area that's continuing to grow, especially post-pandemic. And, you know, it just seems like, you know, Corona just wants to do more and more, and it's great. And our role has really been just working with the residents, working with our businesses, stakeholders, community groups, you name it, just to bring that robust experience to this community. So with that said, I will turn over to Jose, who will walk us through our community calendar.
Thank you, Jason. So as we plan for the year ahead, it's very important for us to understand what other events and activities are happening in Corona. So in front of you guys will have a calendar that we compiled with all the community events forecast for the year 2023. So just kind of at a glance, you can see that the majority of these events that are taking place within Corona are going to be the local events. We also have fair representation within the neighborhood category, which is often more specialized events here in the city. And our signature events are actually growing on par with similar sized communities. And of course, our destination events, which is our real area of potential growth. So over the summer, our team conducted an informal study of tourism comparison with other cities and popular trends to identify what gaps or room for growth there may be in Corona. In generalized terms, we lump them into the following categories.
Jose, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the community calendar, I saw it on the presentation, but I didn't see it in the packet.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get some copies of that made for you real quick.
Okay, you going over it, and I think I had some questions on that, so I.
Apologize for that.
That's okay.
We have some here. You guys want to take a look at these?
Sorry to interrupt your flow.
No worries.
Yeah, read that anyway.
All right, we'll have those out for you in just a second.
So we'll jump right back in. So in generalized terms, like I said, we lump them into the following categories, which are art festivals, athletic events, conventions and cons, cultural and heritage events, ecotourism such as seasonal blooms, nature events, hiking, camping, trails, anything of that nature, fairs and street events, film festivals, food festivals, music festivals, and sports events. So many of these events are often organized by non-city entities, often in partnership with local jurisdictions, and may require some very specific infrastructure, such as convention halls, theaters, outdoor spaces, etc. Again, this is the biggest area of potential growth here in Corona when comparing with other high-performing cities. So what is a city's role in all of this? For destination events, those are often independently organized, high-level attractions like destination races, concerts, and next-level experiences, which often generate profit in return. For cities to attract these type of events, we need to build partnership, have the correct infrastructure, be business friendly, and have resources available on the table. For example, the world famous Spartan Run series seeks communities to bid at minimum $300,000 in cash or in kind to bring a race to the city. For the local category, it's all about those citywide attractions. So it's the city maintains a relationship with businesses and community partners, offers co-sponsorship opportunities and advertising opportunities to get the word out about local happenings within the city. An example of this would be the city with the Corona Rotary to hold their annual Lobster Fest out on the South Lawn. For our neighborhood category, these are more oftenly specialized or in specific to a specific region. So the city helps to ensure that these events are held at a safe, suitable standard and may promote and help get the word out. For example, the Vintage Home Tour seeks advertising or even a park playground reopening event within the city. For our signature events, these are often city-hosted activities or programs, often in partnership with community groups that are intended to foster a sense of place and often free and open to any and all. An example of this would be our Independence Day, 4th of July celebration, is an example of what we can do here in the city, as it is one of our largest events that we do host. So people often ask, how do we find out what's happening here in the city of Corona? So while we have this information internally, we're looking to share this in a public setting by use of the following: an interactive calendar of events, social media integration, email newsletters, and even in print in the Corona Connection brochure that goes out to all of our residents. One of the elements that we're most excited about is working with our communications team to launch a community calendar on the city website, which will be a new feature to all residents, and they will have access to this 24/7. We will include all city happenings, shared events, and other dates with a curated eye for a diversified range of interest. Residents can scroll to this website at their leisure or even sign up to get updates sent directly to their inbox. There are a lot of great things happening here within the city of Corona, not just what the city puts on, but what opportunities for engagement through multiple sectors. We hope to pilot this program early next year and then revamp it as part of the city's overall new website coming at a later date. So the timeline for the new community calendar is pretty straightforward. We are currently developing a policy and a standard operation procedure to ensure equitable use. We will then begin building the program, including staging and the software in the winter-spring seasons. And in the summer, we'll be ready to roll out the program just to get everything ready for summer events, and you can plan out what you want to do.
All right. So as we continue to work on our signature event series and our happenings for the next year, one item that we want to do and put forward is a recommendation for maybe a one-time only Historic Civic Center Centennial Celebration. This year we're actually looking at the 100th anniversary of this facility, and we do want to celebrate it.
Coming are gonna geek out so bad.
Yeah, you guys are going to geek out so bad. And what we really want to do is celebrate the space. A lot of our residents maybe have not even been in it, do not necessarily know the history of it. And we have some great community groups and partners that are utilizing the space, and we're looking at maybe doing a showcase to kind of kick off a season with them. And then also looking at maybe integrating some regular features throughout the year, some intentional programming of this space, to bring in maybe movie screenings, to have an author talk, to have a concert, to bring arts and culture and make that accessible to any resident. And it's a little bit different than how we normally operate this facility. Right now, we primarily operate it as a rental space. So we work with community groups, it's available to them, they can book it, but we don't put too much of our own programming into it. And I think that dovetails nicely into the performing arts feasibility study that we're currently underway, to see, if we do some intentional programming this next year while this is going on, is there an interest for this? Is there a draw? I think Vice Mayor Daddario, you're commenting, well, I don't know what types of music and, attractions people will come out for. If you build it, will they come? This gives us a kind of a opportunity to kind of sample on maybe a small scale, some fun, evening opportunities to come in, check out the HCC, and of course, celebrate its legacy here in the community. The next one, of course, we will not spend too much time on it, is the idea for that downtown Corona summer street scene. We just think that's the next logical evolution as we continue to grow our special event, and as we look at a big draw, a big destination, a big hurrah. I think that would be so much fun. And like you said, Councilmember Richens, it could be a powder keg, right? I mean, we would love to have success. We'd love to have awesome food trucks and bands and cool merch and all kinds of neat things where people are coming from all over to check out. All right. So I think we all have a good idea of what we have done and where we could go. And as we prepare for the budget season, we're just looking for some feedback so we can do further analysis, investigation, and forecasting for our budget needs. Of course, we can keep things local and just focus on our proposed street scene and ensuring we have the correct support to keep up with demand for our ongoing special event programming. Healthy growth sees us looking at incorporating some new elements, like maybe a Movies in the Park series, which could tour the city, cultural event in one of our slower months, and maybe trying out some of those proposed, one of those proposed items on the attachment. Of course, if we're ready for that next evolution, we need to dedicate some serious time and resource. We need to attract promoters, touring productions, major events. We would also want to continue to expand our public offerings and look at how we can maybe take some of the concerts and things like that to that next level and attract visitors from the greater region. And the last is, kind of that dream big area, but it's, what would it look like if we were actively seeking, 2 to 3 destination events, maybe promoting, bigger and better signature events, maybe getting into some, creative, incubation ideas, doing maybe some more niche things as well, like maybe a Dog Days event, maybe a nighttime light spectacular.
What is a Dog Days event?
Yeah, right. I mean, Corona loves dogs, right?
What is a Dog Days?
Ah.
Like the golden retriever sites where you bring hundreds of Goldens to the same park at one time, something like that.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, so you can have, oh, sorry, we'll pause real quick. But you can have all kinds of vendors, you can have, information sessions, you can have services, you can have dog agility courses. I mean, people go nuts for this. One of the things we were looking at was the dog surfing competition in Huntington Beach. It sounds like oddly niche, but people are into it. So there's a lot of, really fun and different kind of things that you can do. You can take a traditional thing like an egg hunt and do it with flashlights. I mean, you can kind of go out of the box, and sometimes these things have the potential to be the next big thing. And, really that Let's Go Big category is, going full tilt into the events, how much resource we want to put behind it. But I mean, really, you have the open sky there. So, we'll want to really kind of be intentional about that. But overall, I wanted to pause here. We have one more question for you. But pause here just to kind of get an idea of, which of these 4 categories most interest you.
Let's see. Go ahead. I'll go first. Because I have an opinion, believe it or not.
Really?
No.
I know, crazy, huh?
Shocking.
I think we should go slow.
Mhm.
I think if we, try and do everything all at once, you guys are already stretched pretty thin. I'd love to see us take some baby steps into it with partners. I know we have people that are coming through the city now that are we had that bike race a little while ago. We could have promoted that more and made more of a connection with that, and maybe done some other things with it. One of the things we listed was the film festival, but I know Dos Lagos is a film festival. I think they're coming back next year. I know we don't have a policy that would let us promote that. So I'd like to kind of flesh some of that stuff out and see if we have some community partners that want to do some things. So it's not just all on us.
100%.
Because that's really what's going to drive it. And like I said, I don't want you guys to do we could go spend a bunch of money. It's going to be your time, and and you guys are already doing a lot already. So it would be interesting to see how these changes that we're promoting already, how those are going to flesh out, and then if maybe we picked a couple of things that you had some community support or some outside support for. One of the reasons why Lobster Fest is great is because it's you just shot out of a cannon by the Rotary folks. There's other events like that. I think if people had the opportunity for, like I think the Parks Foundation has been talking about doing a run, a 5 and 10K run up Skyline for years, but they can't do it by themselves. And it's a small group, so maybe there's somebody else that would want to team with us, or that we enlist them and we give them some rights to it or something. I don't know. There's some kind of co-sponsoring thing where we're not giving them money, but we're helping them with other things, and they promote an event. So maybe going through and highlighting what we think some of those are. I mean, you've already kind of listed a couple of them out already. It'd be interesting to see how much some of these things would cost, but I'm very hesitant to go, hey, let's shoot for the moon, because like I said, I'm worried about your guys' time and there not being a lot of community support behind you guys.
And Mayor, I will point out too, at the bottom of each of those two, we kind of call out for some additional support.
Sure.
So, if we're looking at a big destination event, we're working maybe with, the cycling groups. Anything we do, we want to make sure we're dedicating the appropriate amount of time and resource. We need to kind of network, we need to collaborate. We were just having a phone call with a community group yesterday. We were doing a Teams meeting, we have all these people on the line, and we're kind of walking them through the process. And they're building toward an event, right? So we're telling them, you need to do this, we will help you with this part, and to kind of build and foster that relationship. So right now, it's pretty much Jose. I help out as best I can. But, as we go bigger too, you need to kind of scale what support we can lend to that experience too. And I would also call out the contract services being an important aspect of that. So even, as we talk street scene, one thing I'm going to be definitely thinking about is, the safety and security of all of our guests in attendance. We'll want to make sure we have safe and adequate road closures, maybe some security and some additional support in addition to our part-time staff who, maybe have been working at our kids club camp all morning and, they want to pick up an extra shift. They're a little bit tired. They're awfully friendly, but, someone in a uniform has a different type of presence.
Long day. No, I get it.
Also, Mayor, if your direction is, I want to kind of keep it in the local category, the next slide talks about, well, I want to keep it kind of on the core set, and then we just add 1 or 2 more types of events, and then we can flesh that out further. And come back.
Okay. I just wanted to. I was kind of looking at this whole as a whole, and I wanted to give some just kind of general feedback. Yeah, I definitely see the next slide, but I just wanted to. You asked for feedback on just these items alone, and I'll
Well, and as a general category.
Is that what you're?
I'm thinking. I think we keep it local for now, but I'd like to see some ideas for what the other things are and what they would. I know that there's some there, but are those real things? How far along are you? Like movies in the park, is somebody sponsoring a cultural event? I don't know what that would be. The International Food Truck Fest, do we have somebody that wants to do that, or that's something that's on us?
And Mayor, if I may, we're just trying to get a general sense of what direction we want to go with our growth and how ambitious we want to be. Any of these items, we're definitely going to need to do some further analysis, investigation. We're going to look at hard numbers, so that way when we go into a budget season, we can.
So are we talking about FY24 then?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
Do you mind if I go next?
you could.
I'm asking,
Yeah, go ahead.
because I have the opposite opinion. I'm absolutely for let's go big, and I'll tell you why. Because number one, I think that we have an all-star Parks and Rec department that is probably using 25% of their creativity. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that you guys can be unleashed. And the way that I look at this is that even if we said let's go big and we approved the budget, I don't think that budget is going to get used right away, because I think there's a very thoughtful, creative process they're going to go through in order to curate these events, right? So it's not just like, give me the credit card and we're going to go charge a bunch of stuff. It's, we have the option to go big if we create and curate these events for the community. I think Councilmember Richens hit it on the head. We asked for Measure X, we got Measure X, it's doing well. And I think the first stakeholder in line is the citizens. And I think that there's some great ideas that could possibly come out of this. And I don't want them to be stifled in their creativity because they're limited on budget. Doesn't mean that we're gonna approve everything, but they may say, look, we can kind of do these 2 or 3 things. It's gonna cost a little bit more, but I think the payoff is big in the experience for the community. And so I recognize that there's gonna, we got one guy working in this space right now, and while he's a superstar, he's still one guy. And I think that there's, at the end of the day, I envision that there's going to be a great want and desire with some of the other things that we're doing, that we're gonna have to grow that department at some point. I don't think that if we say, let's go big, they start ramping up tomorrow by adding people, but I think it's just, let's see some of the creativity. I don't want to answer any of these other than to say, go big. Let's dream here. I wrote down some thoughts for the historic civic center. I absolutely think that we should activate that center with our own events. I wrote down TEDx events. I wrote down comedy events. I mean, I think that those would do well for the size that they are, and that's how you get the groundswell going, right? And you have to kind of start. And I think that you guys have done a great job, but you guys are kind of put in parameters, and I think that if we expand those parameters, we've seen great 4th of July events. The Christmas tree lighting is probably my favorite event of the city. I thought that was great last year. I don't want to stifle you guys' creativity. I want you guys to think big, because I trust that they're all very reserved when it comes to, we don't want to spend unless we think this is going to be a great event. So I'm the complete opposite of you. And I'm usually the fiscally conservative one here, but I'm like, look, if we're going to spend on something, let's spend it on our residents. I mean, these are great events that I know are there. So that's my opinion.
Okay, Tom?
Since we're in reverse,
Listen, I gotta mix it up, man. Only a few meetings left. This is it.
Steiner. So for this, the historic civic center, it needs to be a big deal. It's 100 years. The architect is a world famous architect. He designed not only the civic center, but the Mission Inn in Riverside. And there's, for those of you that do geek out on this, there's about 12 buildings of his that are still standing.
So we have a year to get rid of that sign then. That's it. We're perfect.
Get rid of the sign, and
That sign's not going
Just move
anywhere.
it. We're gonna move the sign. That's all. We're just gonna move it.
and any forward thinking as to the historic civic center that can be announced next year would be great too. So I will leave it at that, but please make that a big deal. And then as to this one, the options for consideration, believe it or not, I actually agree with both Tony and Wes.
Perfect, that's all.
This make clear for you guys?
Keep it small, but go bigger.
Yeah.
And so
That's kind of what I said.
Super helpful, Tom.
I'll explain. So with Tony, I'm all for going big, and I think the finances are right, and I think it is right. You do reward your citizens. They're the ones that pay for all this, and it's good to have your community thrive, period. For Wes's point, prudence is good. You want to calculate your steps, and you want to get the most bang for your buck. So my advice, if it's heated, would be these 4 options is a Jacob and Ann conversation. It's gonna be those 2 people that know the right balance. It won't be us, but it'll be Jacob and Ann in their conversations and their meetings that determine the pace that this needs to be at. And that's where I would be.
Okay, Jim?
Well, what's virtually everybody that lives in the city say all the time? There's
Nothing to
do in
do.
this city, right? And there is very little to do in this city. This is something that we have full control over, 100% control, basically. We don't need outside influences to help us do what we can actually do this. So I had the same opinion to set that bar really high, and we may not be able to clear it for several years, but if that's our end goal, we can, again, organically work towards it. Let's first make our local events really great, even better, because they are really great, but we can make them better. It's all been discussed here tonight. And I think starting out to make it way better is get that street fair going. And I know that'll be a huge hit. And then, let's make sure over a couple years that we make that event by itself the greatest event we can. And that may include bringing in a premium band to close, or having 20 street food trucks instead of 3. And we do need to concentrate a lot on food trucks. So yes, prudent growth, aggressive growth to get to where that end game is where we want to be is what I really
Agree with me and Tom.
I think we should focus on going big. Let's not sell ourselves short. We do have the money. Let's go for
The
it.
smart path to
Let's go
going
big.
big.
Yeah,
Can
let's
I,
go big.
Ask for clarification.
Clarify then?
Yeah,
So I think what I'm hearing from majority is you want to go big.
yeah, hell yeah.
And however quickly and prudently, but to the degree that we are able to grow that as quickly as we can, but without going.
Right, yeah, let's not be stupid about
That's
it.
the goal
what
that
we
we
have.
want to go to.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But that's really the direction we need at this point. And you're gonna see us come back to you again with
Yeah.
what that looks like for the next year, because to your point, Jim, we're not gonna be able to go big on year one,
No, of course not.
because we'll have to hire some people to do it. And then
We
we'll
gotta
have
figure out
get
how to
some
close
people
6th
year
Street.
Well, that was what I said. I said, we're talking about FY '24,
Right.
and I'm saying, look, I think we perfect what we have right now, add a couple of pieces, and then look at what the rest looks like.
Right, well, that's different than what they're saying though. They're
Okay.
saying, go big as quickly as you can.
Really?
Responsibly.
Yeah,
Responsibly.
responsibly,
Yeah.
as quickly as you can responsibly do that.
Take the smart path.
And so but we don't want to irresponsibly do that. Don't
No, I
worry,
get it.
no one's gonna try to
No, I
grow
know, I
faster
know.
or run faster than we have strength. The goal is though, if that's where you want us to go, we're gonna start looking 1, 2, 3 years ahead. We're gonna start planning in the staff
Perfect.
support, we're gonna start looking at sponsorships.
Yeah.
Cause to you've all made really good points. I've done this before. And you have to look for events that are best put on by an outside promoter, and some events are done well by inside staff. But to be sure, all of these wouldn't just be pure Corona City staff running them. You have to find those outside partners. The Hardman Classic is a good example where if that's something you want us to start looking, Hardman
Bye,
Classic.
Grace.
Bye, Grace. If you want us to get into that more, then we will formally approach them about a partnership, and we'll make it bigger, and we'll get the city more involved. With the Dos Lagos Film Festival, if that's something that you want us to take on, then we do start co-promoting that with them, because that's a direction you want us to go. So if that's the vision that you want us to pursue, we will put together a plan to get us there in a way that we think is responsible, measured,
Perfect.
but as quickly as we can build up to that to respond to the community demand.
So yes, let's honor our civic center for sure, and then we'll do our Grand Avenue Road Race in 5 years. Okay.
All right, thank you.
That'd be awesome. Joe wants to speak.
All right. So do you have any speaker cards besides?
Here, yes, we do, we have one.
We had one more question before we close out
Oh,
the
sure.
presentation, or?
Come sit up here so I can hear.
You can. Come on up.
You guys could all come up probably. Got open
I'm
seats.
just looking for clarification on a rumor that I've heard, and I just want to clarify it. Every fall, what happened a month or so ago, every fall in town, there's an event that's put on by Corona Life Services, which is called a Walk for Life. And it takes place on, at the schoolyard down there. And I had heard that the city had some sponsorship or assistance linkage with that event. And I don't know if it does or not. That's why I just wanted to clarify that. And my position is that if the city does have some linkage or assistance with that event, that it ought not to. The city ought not to take a side one way or the other on the abortion issue. And so that's my position. I was just trying to clarify that rumor. And if the city does have anything to do with it, I think we ought not to. So maybe somebody can answer that.
I'd actually be happy to answer that. Community Services recently received the city's co-sponsorship.
I'm sorry, I don't hear very good and I get a lot of reverb.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer that. The city did, Community Services is now overseeing the co-sponsorship program. And historically, it looks like prior to 2019 or prior that the city did sponsor that program. It was held at a park. Since then, they have not applied nor held any of their events on city property.
Okay, so, because the school is school district property.
Yeah, it's been about 3 years since.
So they have to have a deal with the school district, right?
Mhm.
But so there's no city assistant or linkage or something?
Correct.
Okay, that's
It's a
all I
rumor.
wanted to know.
Another rumor, Don.
Well, there, see, now it's no longer a rumor.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Well, I'm all in favor of going big. I also have a couple of suggestions that are incremental and I think achievable. Peppermint Ridge does a Run for the Ridge in Norco. That's promoted on the city page already. Seems like that's something that could easily be, tied together with the Parks Foundation, and we could use our own ridge instead of them using Norco's ridges. And they could do a run over at Skyline or, someplace up south. It's held in September. Seems like there's plenty of time to derail it from the Hidden Valley Nature Center. We used to have Run for the Crown here. I don't really understand why we haven't had running events here in how many years. I would also, I would hope that we could help groups that want to do events easier, because it's not always that easy. Go back to the Legion Card Show, which was a spectacularly fun event, but it wasn't that easy for them to do. So I think some greasing the tracks for some of these events would go a long ways towards what you said about having outside events organize it if we can make it easier for them. So that's it.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Okay, great. We will move to our last one. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that.
Did you need clarification on this last slide?
I think we got a wealth of information there. So,
Good?
yeah, I think we're good.
Which is basically feedback on the calendar, both funding. Yeah, I think, did anybody have an issue, or any questions or any comments on the calendar or
No.
funding yet? Thumbs up. Go, go, go. And calling yourself, Jose. Okay, last one is secondhand smoke nuisance. Roger Bradley, Assistant General Manager, I don't know what I'm calling my brain. I'm tired, I'm driving too much.
Sure. Sounds good. So last presentation.
He's losing his hearing. He's not hearing.
I know.
Probably get through this one fairly quickly. Beginning. All right, so this is secondhand smoke abatement and looking at declaring it potentially as a nuisance so that we can abate secondhand smoke. Slide. So the ask here is, I think the mayor had some community members approach him about what to do with secondhand smoke in apartment housing and multifamily properties. So we're asking the council today to give us some direction on whether to proceed with looking at declaring secondhand smoke as a nuisance so that we can look at doing its abatement. It really has to do with multifamily housing. You get people in a tight space and you get secondhand smoke in there, and they tend to have some complaints about how do I get rid of secondhand smoke. And the reason why it's an issue is because we have multifamily properties. You have a lot of people with a lot of close proximity to their neighbors. They're in a high concentration of an area together. Walls and other air spaces happen to be shared, or there's balconies that are, you're close to your neighbors. You look over the fence, they're 10 feet away. Of course, it's an important source of housing for the community, but those issues can present challenges as you have somebody that lives next to you that is a smoker, and that is because if there's not proper and sealed ventilation, things can get into the air shafts. The wall spaces. Sometimes we hear complaints of staff that my wall on the one side of my house is close to my neighbor, and I sit over there and I can smell smoke coming through. Or I'm at sleep at night and I live on the second floor. My neighbor's on the first floor, and the smoke drips up and comes into the windows and creates some issues for me. Really, what we're asking for as a policy choice today is there some responsibility on behalf of the smoker to take care of and be cognizant of their secondhand smoke and where it goes? And if so, can we provide some relief? And that relief comes in the form of looking at nuisance abatement. So the city has, a number of nuisances that we deal with. You have noise. It's something that we hear from time to time. There's too much noise outside. Can we abate that? Vicious dogs, odors, and this is all comes sort of under our police powers and ability to protect the public health and safety of the community. And really, this evening we're asking the council, do you want to include secondhand smoke in that definition of what is a nuisance. So we can declare a secondhand smoke as a nuisance and provide our residents with an ability to take action to deal with that secondhand smoke as it drips onto their property. Ordinance language is not very difficult. Simply, we would have an ordinance put together that says secondhand smoke constitutes a nuisance. And what we propose is that there be private enforcement, so residents can actually, if they have an issue where secondhand smoke is encroaching on their property, they can actually take it and get what would amount to an injunction or some type of a legal remedy to say, hey, you need to stop smoking near me, get it away from my house. Something that I've seen and managed in other areas I've been in throughout my career, and it's been effective at helping people get through some of these issues. Enforcement on it again would be private, so residents would be able to take somebody to court to say, hey, stop smoking around me, get it away from my home. They're then empowered to take action on their own and do something about the secondhand smoke that's bothering them. And what I've seen, it becomes really effective is when people call and they complain and start talking to staff and they say, well, what can I do? I have somebody next door to me that's smoking and it's coming on my property. How do I deal with it? You say, oh, well, the council has decided to take the step of declaring secondhand smoke as a nuisance. And they say, hey, you as a resident can take action to deal with this thing. And what we generally do as staff is we keep our involvement pretty minimal. We would send a letter we ask the resident that's complaining and say, where's that tenant live? And we would send a letter just to say, hey, there is a law in place that council has enacted that says secondhand smoke is a nuisance, and you need to be responsible for how to deal with that. And you can be taken to court and get somebody can take an action against you to have you cease and desist your smoking near them. So be aware that there are some legal remedies that are out there to deal with the smoke that you're letting drift onto your neighbor's property. And that really gets people starting to think about, okay, well, I got to be responsible. I can't just smoke wherever I feel like. I got to be aware of my neighbors around me. And they start talking to each other a little bit from time to time and figure out how, hey, if I smoke over here, is that a problem? Yeah, this side is a problem, but if you're on the other side of the house, I don't notice it at all. So those kinds of things end up helping deal with some of the issues that arise. Again, so the key points here, we're proposing again to declare secondhand smoke a nuisance and to allow private abatement of it. That allows residents to take action on their own through going to court and getting basically some type of a legal order saying you need to stop smoking near me. It minimizes staff's interaction because they're now empowered to do it. It's not staff that's taking action. We're not sending the smoking police over to their house. We're not saying that people can't smoke in their home. Just needs to be aware of your secondhand smoke and where it goes. And if you let yourself be a nuisance to your neighbors, that somebody can come and say, no, you have to stop doing that. And again, it's sort of a policy statement that's where smokers and non-smokers live in close proximity. Secondhand smoke must be managed. You must be aware of what you're doing to your neighbors around you. And obviously, when people learn that they can be, sued or brought to a court to get a restraining order against them, they start thinking, okay, I got to be a little more careful, and I'll be more considerate with my secondhand smoke and how it impacts people around me. The ask again here this evening is, do you want us to look at adding secondhand smoke as a nuisance for the community and preparing an ordinance declaring such? That's the recommendation. It shouldn't take too long to do this. This is really kind of a first step. If council is interested in providing some relief to residents in our residents in our neighborhoods, and making sure that there is a way to deal with secondhand smoke. Right now, when people call, it's sort of a private issue. People can smoke if they want to. There really isn't a legal remedy for anybody to deal with secondhand smoke. To prepare an ordinance would take about 3 months. It's not that involved of a process. We'll be back here by the end of the year if council is interested in that. The pros and cons, again, it provides a means for dealing with conflict between residents when secondhand smoke becomes an issue. Often the threat of a legal action is enough to resolve conflicts. Not in all cases, but generally speaking, the reasonable, rational people realize that I need to take care of the issues that are arising with my neighbors. And for those that are the extreme cases, then there is the legal remedy available if there really is a need to do something. And again, the pro is that it's privately enforced. Looking at some of the cons, it does create somewhat of a tension between neighbors. If they're suing each other, that can be a negative view by residents. And not everybody is comfortable with pursuing legal action. Again, that's why we propose as staff to send letters out to let people know that, hey, you could be taken to court if you're smoking near your neighbor and it's bothering them or creating issues for them because they can't get away from it. It's housing. That's where they live, and they want to have free enjoyment of their home just like anybody else does. That concludes our report, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. That was great. This came up, I think we are all in the room when there was a woman that came up, and I got a couple more calls after that from people, and I'll be 100% honest. I've never lived in an apartment. I've been very fortunate. I lived in 4 homes my entire life. However, I had friends that lived in in apartments, and I would go over and go, how the hell do you do this? This is crazy. And the last time, you know, a guy was sitting on his, we were on the second floor, a guy sitting on his balcony, and he's, you know, smoking away, and they, you know, automatically went over and closed everything. And I said, what are you doing? It was a beautiful night. And they go, oh, you know, so-and-so downstairs smoking and he won't stop. So I kind of saw this, yeah, people are, you know, held hostage, so to speak. They either have to move and try and find a place that's smoke-free. But I, at the same time, I didn't want the city being involved, being the smoke police, but just to be able to provide people with another opportunity, you know, for another remedy. And with, you know, I kind of circled the send the letter thing, talking about it. Maybe there might be a way also when someone does send that to give some suggested remedies for what they could do if the person didn't abate it. What's that?
Don't smoke.
Well, I mean, not just that, but I mean to the person that has the issue. Yeah, some you know, not necessarily legal advice, but some, hey, these are your options, and relating that in a letter to the person. You know, going and getting a restraining order, I don't know, that's a legal question, but I like the idea that this is a first step to see how we do it. I don't want to hit the problem over the head with a sledgehammer to begin with, but you know, I figure this is a good first step and see what the reaction is. Because I mean, we regulate everything else. It'd be good for one that people can't escape from. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Is there, some of our surrounding agencies, do they have these in their ordinance, and have there been any unintended consequences, or have they been effective?
I don't have a list with for me right now, in front of me right now, but there are several agencies on Riverside that passed a smoke-free housing ordinance where they're providing smoke-free units within their community. Several communities have taken that step. Not every community has done that. This is sort of, as the mayor mentioned, sort of a first step, letting people manage on their own privately, sort of the secondhand smoke issue. So we're not telling everybody what they have to do.
I think it's a good idea, and you know, we also gotta take into account, this isn't just cigarette smoke, this is cannabis smoke too, and that is a whole nother level of, you know, odor.
It would apply to both.
Yeah, for sure, it would have to, So yeah, I agree with, having that be something that the citizen can do something about, having that avenue for them.
Tom?
Yeah, I wanted to know if it was cannabis as well, but sounds like it is. I think this is a very measured response, and I don't think the legal system for cases like this is a bad thing. I think it's a good solution for citizens or for homeowner, whoever, to go through. So it lets us do our part, and it gives people a pathway forward.
Maybe they'll start taking gummy bears instead.
Right?
I was gonna say, you know, if you consider just chew, if you're a tobacco user, if you tried gummy bears, if it's.
Yeah, I think it comes with being in an
Smoke-free
apartment, is
option.
you're supposed to be considerate of others, the people that are aren't, so.
As long as it doesn't include barbecue smoke.
Yeah, that's not part of that.
Yeah.
Very
That's
good.
it.
I'm talking about, that's the best smell.
What if you use cannabis briquettes?
We're looking at the definition.
That's a whole different, brisket.
I don't know.
And then Councilmember Casillas told me that she was a thumbs up as well.
All right, thank you. Bring it forward.
Okay, so we adjourned, the next meeting is study session and city council meeting on November 16th. So we're having a joint
Study
meeting.
session and.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
It fits in that.
Actually, no, it wasn't intended. I wish I could take credit.